Jasmine Shah from the Aam Aadmi Party. He's joining us, spokesperson. I also have BJP MP Aparajita Sarangi. Ms. Sarangi, you know, the fact is, when you look at the claims and the charges that have been laid by the CBI, the Aam Aadmi Party says, wait a minute, we have an explanation for everything.
A very good evening, and I must compliment you for this kind of investigative journalism. This is a very good report that you actually shared with the people who are watching you at this juncture. Now, let us talk with facts and figures. See, this is what your anchors had been doing, you have been doing, and the Bharatiya Janata Party in a couple of press conferences have been talking of certain issues backed by arguments, backed by facts and figures, and we had actually raised 10 questions. Unfortunately, we could hear about the school model and the health model, but we couldn't get answer to those questions. Now here, let us understand. See, there are two things when we talk of a policy. I have come from the government, so I know, how things function within the government. When a policy is drafted, we look at two things. The intention of the government which drafts the policy, and number two, the method of implementation of that policy. Now, the intention and the method of implementation, these two should be above all doubt. Now here, as far as these two are concerned, I think we have lots of doubts and we have lots of questions to ask the Aam Aadmi Party, and Aam Aadmi Party unfortunately has not been able to answer. The new excise policy came into effect on 16th of November 2021. We all are aware of it. Now, 8 months after, when they realized there was too much of hangama, and they knew there were irregularities, and they knew that the irregularities had surfaced, and they knew everybody was talking about it, they withdrew the policy. Now, if they knew their integrity was beyond doubt, if they knew everything was fine, then why did they withdraw the policy? That's the question. Now, here is a group of people in the Aam Aadmi Party, with all regards for all the leaders, I must say this, they are full of sound and fury, signifying that all is not well. They have been, holding series of press conferences answering everything but not the questions that are being posed. Now here what happened? There were irregularities. Then the LG, Mr. Saxena, called for a report from the Chief Secretary. The Chief Secretary submitted reports, scathing attack, and many procedural lapses. Now it is linked to the method of implementation of the policy, came to the surface, and of course, thereafter, LG requested the CBI to go for raids. Now when the Chief Secretary submitted the report, he talked of two things. One, procedural lapses, violation of rules, and number two, post-tender undue benefits to liquor licenses. Right? So I think, yes. Can you hear me, Preeti?
Ma'am, we can hear you. Please finish your point and then we'll go to the Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson.
Yes, that's it. So these two things actually Chief Secretary reported to the LG, and then LG of course asked the CBI to get into it. CBI and ED are on the job. They are getting into things, meticulously working day in and day out. And as we say in Hindi, doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani ho jayega. But one thing, of course, before I conclude, as my opening remark, I must say one thing. See, interestingly, there was 87% increase in the liquor sale after the coming of this policy. But then, it was hoped that we would be having a revenue of rupees 9,500 crore, which was also...
It didn't translate into revenue, right now. Yes.
But then, it came down to rupees 1,450 crore. Loss of 8,050 crore.
Right.
So how do you explain this?
I'm going to bring in, I want to bring in Jasmine Shah into this conversation. Jasmine Shah, pertinent points which Ms. Sarangi has raised, which the CBI is also raising. One of them particularly on bringing down the excise from 200% on a bottle to 1.88% on a bottle.
Preeti, I think first, let me just put some facts about the excise policy straight. Because one needs to understand, rather than throwing random allegations, throwing numbers helter and skelter, let's understand what the excise policy sought to achieve. And I must credit your journalists, they got the right point. That earlier, like in many regressive regimes, the entire tax was collected after the sale of the bottle. which is up to 300%, and therefore there was a lot of incentive for the shopkeepers to sell through extra legal manner. What Delhi government did is collected the entire tax upfront and reduced the tax on sale. And what did that achieve? You can ask the question, eventually the proof of the pudding is in the eating. When the new policy kicked in, the state government revenues jumped from 6,000 to 9,500 crores. That was what the bidding amount was. Now, there was only one catch. This bidding amount would have been realized if the LG had allowed the 850 excise or liquor shops to open in Delhi. You know, if you can build the finest bridge and a tollway, but if you not allow vehicles to pass through the bridge, then how are you going to collect the revenues? And that is exactly where, you know, this entire policy was weakened. 2 days before the policy came into implementation, Delhi LG prevented excise or liquor shops from opening in 1/3 of part of Delhi. Regardless, let me put this on record that in the first year itself, the jump in revenues in 2020-21, the excise revenues was 4,100 crores. In 2021-22, it was 5,400 crores. So this is the first scam, Preeti, where they're claiming that there is a huge scam, but the government coffers, you know, the revenues increase. And if I ask the BJP spokesperson, scam kahan pe hai? Kitne rupiyon ka hai? What is the amount that you are claiming? You yourself are not clear, ma'am, because CBI FIR talks about some random figure. CBI FIR doesn't even talk about where is the involvement of Mr. Manish Sisodia. It talks about one liquor shop owner transferred some money into the account of another liquor shop owner. And it's been 7 days now that the CBI has raided the house of Deputy CM. What is the evidence? What did they find? Doesn't the people of the nation deserve answers to all this? So it's very convenient to hide behind roundabout arguments. The plain question is, what is the scam? What is the amount of the scam? And third, what has happened to the CBI raid on Manish Sisodia's house? Was this not just about Operation Lotus, which the Aam Aadmi Party has been claiming about toppling Delhi government, just like you have toppled the governments of Maharashtra, Meghalaya, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Manipur, Assam? I can go on and on. But the reality in the front of the nation is that this is nothing but an attempt to unsettle Arvind Kejriwal as he is striking ground in Gujarat. The ground beneath your feet is sinking. Aam Aadmi Party is today emerging as the national opposition, and therefore you're holding the crutch of your CBI and EDI. Kal you talked about liquor policy. Today you're talking about classrooms. Tomorrow you'll talk about mohalla clinics. So please make up your mind, ma'am. What is the issue? Where is the scam?
Okay, okay. Ms. Sarangi, you know, there are so many figures, you know, permutations, combinations that are floating about, what Mr. Shah is also saying. What is the scam in terms of hardcore money that there is a trail to, which leads to Manish Sisodia?
See, CBI is doing its job, and I think all of us need to have a lot of faith in the ability of these institutions to deliver, and they would be filing the charge sheet and all the figures would come out. But at the same time, I would like to quote the LG. He's a very senior IAS officer, and we must trust him. You know, certain institutions have to be trusted. The institution of LG also needs to be trusted. Now here, I have the report of the LG with me. Please allow me to read out just 30 seconds. He says, no law in Delhi allows for opening of liquor vents in non-conforming areas. And just give me 15 seconds more. He says, why this report dated 10 December 2021, the committee was of the view that as regards 67 non-conforming wards, the excise department can consider allowing the licensee of such wards to open additional vents in the conforming areas of such adjoining wards where conforming areas exist, or any other ward allotted to the licensee accordingly. I repeat, no permission was granted for opening liquor vents in non-conforming areas, but unfortunately, the excise minister ensured that these kinds of liquor vents existed everywhere, both in the conforming and non-conforming areas. So in fact, many things were done to ensure that the private liquor barons benefit.
Let me respond to
there
that.
were procedural lapses with what you're saying. Okay, I'm going to quickly bring in Ms. Shah for a quick comment, but Mr. Shah, Jasmine, the fact is, the CBI sources say, listen, this might be the FIR, there's an annexure to it. The annexure has all the monies in it.
That's it.
No, that's not true. That is just the paperwork that BJP leaders have been, reading in TV debates and press conference after press conference. That does not construe hard evidence. But let me call again out the hypocrisy of BJP on this. You know, every point that they make has no legs. this issue of non-conforming areas. What is non-conforming areas? Let your viewers understand that 1/3 of Delhi is constituted of unauthorized colony. Close to 12 lakh, 10 to 12 lakh people live in unauthorized colony. So if you're saying that no liquor shops can open in 1/2 or 1/3 of Delhi, then you are basically trying to talk about a partial prohibition, a Gujarat-like prohibition in Delhi. Let me also remind that in the earlier regime, the LG of Delhi himself, successive LGs of Delhi have allowed close to 250 shops to be opened in this so-called non-conforming areas of Delhi. So what did suddenly happen on November 14? That your LG suddenly woke up overnight after the policy was notified with his approval and said that, you know what, I'm not going to allow 250 shops to be opened. I don't care about the bidding that has happened. I'm not allowed. I don't care about the entire law that has been passed. I'm going to target the Aam Aadmi Party. I'm going to introduce a Gujarat-like prohibition, and then I'll send CBI and ED after Aam Aadmi Party. So
I know, Ms. Sarangi, you want to come in, but with both your permission, I need to bow out of this debate. Appreciate both of you for joining us. I'm sure we're going to have you back in because, the argument is not going anywhere, and we're going to see it fester while the CBI, whether is going to make an arrest or not, time will tell. The Aam Aadmi Party, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal has made it very clear that it's going to happen very soon because the Aam Aadmi Party calls it a witch hunt, the BJP calls it due diligence. When will it happen is the big question.